Didn't this land kiss our feet when we walked on it? Didn't its fruit give up sweetness when we bit into it? When we lay our bodies over the flowers, did they for a moment resist death? Didn't they give up their last perfumed breath willingly? Didn't the trees bend and break to make way for our towers? The mountains slice themselves in half to open new paths. Air that I breathe, once breath in your lungs. This is the harvest. This is the harvest, once seeds, flesh picked clean by this land's own mouth. What a foolish lover we have made of this land.
Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of On the Canvas. And today on the Canvas, we're excited to have Lamich Kirabo, who is a Ugandan-born Paris-based artist whose layered ink paintings explore the ever-shifting nature of identity and culture. Raised amongst Ugandan's cultural crossroads, her work reflects what is preserved, what is lost, and how change mirrors the cycles of nature itself. Through her vivid figurative ink paintings, she captures the self in motion, timeless, evolving, and unbound by space. Rooted in a childhood surrounded by craft and creation, Lamich paints not just face, but reflections of memory, heritage, and the becoming. Lamich, welcome to On the Canvas.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure and an honor to have you, Sissy.
Uh,
Now, you are coming directly from your home in Paris. Am I correct?
yes. Yes.
I want to take you back to your childhood. I want us to go back
Mm,
to Uganda.
yes.
Growing up in an environment where you were surrounded by your father's craft, where you are surrounded by the hum of creation. Tell me, what colors or textures do you remember?
Okay, so growing up, my father used to create a lot of Ugandan and African inspired crafts and interior objects. So I grew up watching different craftspeople making when it came to like painting, when it came to making like uh, tables, but it was always with materials that were from a time that was before my time, I'd say. So I think for me, what I really remember was the textures and the colors of the materials that they used. Um, it was always very like earthy tones, and I remember always like being very drawn to like the richness of like the tones that looked most like the earth, and also like seeing that resemblance between even like say like the textures of like the ground and like how that was translated into like the pieces that were made. And I think this really like goes across Africa as a continent in that we like the craft, it's very organic in that what even when it comes to like the colors, like when you're talking about like the redness of clay, it's like it's like the organic form is what is used, and the color comes from using the actual thing and not creating some like a color to match what you are making, or what you're trying to represent rather. So I think being able to be surrounded by those colors, I think even now I still have a deep love for like rich colors, like very like gritty textures, even like the smell of like like the earth. Like my favorite smell is like the smell of like when it's
Of
just
the earth
rain.
after the rain.
Yes, yes, yes. But like those very like strong and like rich, like it all reminds me of like that time growing up. And I think that really influences my art style as well.
No, I'm sorry, I'm smiling because you are literally describing exactly what I also love.
No. This is my favorite scent in the world. It's my favorite smell. Like when it rains and I'm like near like a very like dry place, I will literally stop and like take it in and just be like, I don't know what it is about that smell, but it's
Like
yeah.
it remains in our memory because I also grew up in the Eastern Cape, the rural areas of
Mm.
South Africa. And when you talk about clay, the redness of the soil, and
Yeah.
aspect of the smell of rain onto the earth.
Yes.
Ah, magic, magic. And it's amazing how we share the same memory.
Yes, and I was thinking a lot about like that smell and why it's like what exactly it holds. And I think for me it's also like that um like the expectancy of like I don't know if it's sometimes it's even like right before it rains and like that expectancy of like something is about to happen and it's like the ground is like ready for to be like drenched by like this yeah so like I think there's like a tension in like nature that like gives off this sense.
You are so talking my language here. It feels to me instinctively, I could be wrong, but it feels to me instinctively that no one, when it rains, has got the energy to be on bad mood. I've never been, no, really, I've never
Yes,
been on a bad mood when it rains.
yes,
It's like when it rains, I'm smooth. I'm
yes.
calm. I am, and I always think, do people argue when it rains? It feels
Yeah,
impossible. It feels
but also
impossible to be in a bad mood when it rains.
yeah, no, but it's true. It's true. But also I think it's also like say like I always like say like in Uganda, like if it rains, it's like such a good excuse, say like to like be like, oh, I can't make it to this because it has rained.
I'm going
And you
home.
kind of accept that like it's like the rain is not really like it's not like destroying like a plan. It's like, well, it has rained, so like we just accept it and you kind of get to then just like pause and just instead of trying to work against what is happening. So I think it's also like that like acceptance of like, okay, it's raining. So like all I can do is just like sit and just enjoy the whole process of it.
I love that. And it's true. Effectively, you're right. If an event is cancelled because of rain, it's given.
Yeah. It's a gift.
Okay, Lamish, I want to
Yeah.
find out from you. Before art became a conscious path for you, how did it live inside you? Was it a whisper? Was it a steady presence, or was it something that you had to discover anew?
I think I grew up kind of learning language in like a very visual way, like the way understood the world and the way I felt the most comfortable expressing myself was always in visuals. Like when I was young, I would draw a lot. I was able to really like see like a full concept when it was expressed to me visually and when I was able to express it visually. So I think over the years, that has always been something that I have gone back to when it comes to something that I want to express or um just like as a form of expression. And I also think that it was also a form of play, like a space of safety for me, like over time. Because when I paint, I think I am able to like everything else is like vanishes. When I'm painting, it's just me and the canvas and the materials I'm working with. So it was a very, very much of like a safe space that I was able to carry. And I'm very grateful to have always had that, to be able to carry that um as I grew up and like a safe place to like express myself. And I think I definitely went through the whole process of rediscovering it. About like 3 years ago, I did art in high school, and then I stopped painting for like a couple of years. Well, like painting like actively, like something I do every day. And then I kind of went back to it about 3 years ago, and I realized how natural it felt for me to express myself that way. So I think it almost felt like going back into like a pace of being that was very much in line with just how I am in the world. Yeah.
I love that a lot, in fact. It does make sense. It makes sense, 100%. Especially having grown up with a father. Your father is an architect, if I'm
Yes, yes.
imagine having grown up with a father who's an architect and also who's a creative. Creation is something that is innate in you. And I imagine that, there's a point whereby you do it because it's part of who you are, but then there comes a time where you then do it because you want to express a part of yourself through it.
Yes. I think like honestly, like creation is part of like everyone, and I think it's almost finding your like the channel in which you are called to create through. So I think when it comes to like rediscovering it, it was like going back to like how I naturally create, and I think everyone has like a way of creating that really like is inbuilt in them, and whether that's like influenced by how you grew up or those I guess it's something that you can really never know why that is your way, but I think it's the finding out like how you are supposed to give out like what is in you to create in this world. So I think it was like like finding that again, and like when I did find it, it was like I something you kind of feel like this is something that like how I feel, how I'm able to think, how I'm able to be just kind of is in pace with that. Yeah.
So much. I love that so much. I want us to go into your mediums. You work with ink, layering it into different colors as if like you're layering memory. Why did you decide to work with ink? Why did it become your medium, your voice?
I found ink as a medium for myself to work with by accident. When I started painting again, I was using oils and acrylics, and I was traveling a lot at that time, and I wanted to be able to sketch when I travel somewhere so I could come back and like make the finished piece. And with ink, like all I needed was like paper, a bottle of ink, and like a brush. So it was very easy for me to travel with. But I began to like really love how much I could do with so little. And also like it was also very much about like having like a singular medium and a singular color, and then being able to go really deep into that and finding out that, it works like ink works so differently when it's on different kinds of papers, when it's on canvas, when you use different brushes, you get completely different results. And also like the way that at least I paint with ink is it feels almost like drawing. So it's like a very like long format. And I love the way I was able to like focus on individual like portions of a piece rather than like looking at like what the whole thing looks like. But it's very much like right now I'm painting this part of the canvas and then I'm moving on to the next. And it's like being able to like stretch time out like that and have like a long format of painting. Like I was saying earlier, like it felt very like natural and like very like how I wanted to make. And I think with ink, it's like why I really love it is not so much about like what it looks like, but more of like the process of making. The actual process of making is what I love about it. And when it comes to like layering, it's also like it feels like almost like sculptural, because it's like you are like you start with like a base and then you kind of layer. It's almost like making like three paintings. So you do like the first layer in just black and white, and then you do another layer, but like you can see all the layers. Like when you look at the whole piece, you see all the different layers like underneath. So it has like a transparency to it of like you're
Like
looking
paint,
at one.
paint and acrylic.
Exactly, yes. You're looking at like one painting, but there's actually like three paintings layered over each other. And it's yeah, so it's like a interesting way of I think looking at painting. And also because like I didn't like when I studied painting in high school, I only like did like oil, and so it was something that I kind of was able to like discover for myself, and like through like trial and error, and even now I'm still like experimenting. And so it's something that I'm able to like it's like a curiosity of like what can this one material or like this one exactly like what can it do. um and but I really love like the idea also of like how much you can do with so little with it. Like you can have like a tiny like drop of ink and paint like a lot with that. So it's like the individual nature of like it's a single thing that I can kind of like go really deep into as like a material.
It's like a love that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but like yeah, so sometimes I'm like obsessed with it and even like finding different inks and like finding out like which like it's something that I think because I get to discover it for myself, I try to think about it as there's no right and wrong way of approaching it, and like whatever is working is working. So I think that's what's also exciting about it. Yeah. So
I like the playfulness of it. I
yeah.
I run a residency in France where I get to see artists produce, and something you just said now resonates so much with me because I get to see the process of creation when artists produce.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would come into an artist studio and they've created a piece, and in that piece, the body or the figure or whatever it is, it's in a certain color.
Yes.
And then I come back and I'm in love with it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, okay, this is a beautiful piece. I come back 2 days later, completely changed. You cannot
Yes.
the color that was underneath. And sometimes when I'm doing exhibitions and I am talking about the piece, explaining it to collectors, I always have this urge of telling them the process, but
What when it was before?
because they did not see what I saw. The final product does not look like that at all.
Yes.
It's pointless. And I love what you've just said there, that with ink, you get to see all of that layering. You get to see all of those emotions. You get to see all of that thought process, even on the final presentation. I really like that.
Yes. It's like very transparent in that you will see like the first like blot of ink I put on the canvas to the last one. Like there's no hiding anything. I mean you can try and blend it out, and I've had like a few pieces that like completely failed, and I was like, okay, I'll just paint over that with acrylic, I'm done. But like how I really see it is that you really see like every single like mark that was put on the piece, and it's more of like, okay, if I put this down, I have to now put something next to it that will kind of go with it. So it's
Complemented. That
exactly,
that's
yeah.
what make me think of life and experiences of life that we accumulate in life.
Yes,
I'm just thinking
yes,
about that as a metaphor, in the
yes.
sense that we are literally an accumulation.
Yes, 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 yes. No, that's no, that's exactly how I know. That's exactly, and even like when you think of like life in general, like not just as people, but like the world, like where we're like this, like the present moment is everything that has come before. Like it's really just an accumulation of that, and you see like the final product, and you know it like. But as I mean, while you're going through it, like when I'm making it, like like sometimes it's just like faith because I'm like this is not looking like what I have in my mind, but it's like the faith that like, okay, like as I keep on going, as I keep on, like everything will kind of fall into
Into
place and like
place.
become something. Yes.
I love that. I love that a lot. Your portraits seem suspended figures in motion, yet rooted in some unseen history. How do you approach capturing that sense of timelessness on canvas?
So I think the element of time like plays like such a huge role for me when I'm making a painting. I love to have like very like clean backgrounds because I love the spaciousness of like I'll say like the spaciousness of like the present of that in the present you have like both the past and the future, and it's like in but it's also not a static thing. So I like to have like the figures kind of like on a very like plain background, so you don't really know where like what time they're in. They're just in that moment, and that singular moment holds both like the past and the future, and it's in movement as well. Like for me, like when I would place like a figure on a background, it would be too static in that it was making the present a singular static moment. And I think like even when it comes to like portraits, I don't like to like say paint like just like a singular individual, like one image of that person, because I think it's almost impossible to capture like a present moment because like it's always in transition. Like the moment you say something is present has already moved into the future. So I kind of want to capture like that transitional nature of what we think of as now of and how that is always in movement, and you can't really like put a finger on it. Yeah.
I love it. I really love it. You grew up amidst cultural shift between tradition and the Western influence in Uganda. I want to find out from you if there were specific moments or there's a specific memory where you were really aware of these shifts.
Came to really see how like what was the traditional and then like the modern were really like split in half. So like for example, like you would go for like a traditional wedding and you'd have like the traditional food and then like what would be like the Western food. And there was always like a separateness between those two things. And it almost always felt like the traditional was something that was being like held and preserved where like the modern was something that was happening and was like evolving and changing, but like the tradition was like this static, it was like something from the past that we had to like carry on, like it wasn't present. So I think for me it was when I moved to like when I first moved to Paris for university and try realizing that I could hold my Ugandanness or like that part of my identity as something that is a present thing that is also evolving and changing and is not something that is only um like from the past. Because I think like a lot of times when we think about like when at least I like think was taught to think about culture, I was always taught to think about culture as something that was like long time ago, this is how people did things and you must preserve this, but it wasn't something that I could like actively act out in the present. So I think it was in like coming here and then having to like redefine what that meant and not seeing it as something that like it's like a burden that I have to carry on and like preserve for my children. And then they also have to carry on this burden that was like given from their grandmothers, but like something that they can act out and see that as like an evolving and changing thing. Yeah. And it's not being separate from what it will evolve into in the future. It not being like completely yeah from what is modern or what is relevant and what is now. Yeah.
Hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear because
Yeah.
I personally went through the same thing. When I arrived in
Yes.
France, I was already 28, thank God.
Yes.
So I had my identity. I was a full-grown woman.
Yes.
And it is through the groundness and the knowing of who I
Yes.
am that I was able to state who I was
Yes.
as in France, and then at the same time be able to add on. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that arriving in France at that age, I had so much identity, so much pride about
Yes.
who I was as a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
as a Xhosa woman, because
Mm-hmm.
I come from the tribe Xhosa, that I had so much pride in that. And in South Africa, effectively, it was something to be preserved. But today,
Yes.
it is something that it's not about preserving, but it's something that I'm living out.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I am proud about. I'm expressing it, and it comes through
Yes.
everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that even when I don't have children, but there was a time when I was thinking about having children, and being in
Mm-hmm.
France at that stage, I thought to myself, would I be able
Mm-hmm.
transmit this to my children if they were to be born in France? And it
Yes.
troubled me. I don't know.
No, but no, like I
it,
think
it troubled me not knowing if I could be able to transmit my heritage,
mm,
my culture to them if they were to be
mm,
born in France and live in France. And
mm,
it was a huge question for me.
yes. And I think honestly, like say like for like even like when I think about like my cousins and like how like even when it comes to like language and like say how they speak the language now and like trying to like one not even hold them like responsible for like losing a language and not even thinking about it that way as well. Nothing really stays the same. So like how to evolved in a way that still like carries that like the things that are of value, the things that are is like that should be preserved, you know, and not really thinking about it in a way of like preservation, but like in a way of like just like these are like parts of yourself that you carry and the way that the next generation decides to carry those on is also for them to decide, you know, like it's something that it's constantly changing and evolving, and you hope that the decision that they make take what is most of value, or what you think is most of value, but like you can't really hold them like say that, you know, they have lost, you know, like part of their culture because like they took what was necessary for the time that they are living in. No, really, like I can't say like this is the way it is, because I also don't know. I'm also like trying to figure it out. Yeah. But
Honest with you, just going into what you've just said, even the language was a huge,
yes, yes,
because I was at that stage learning French. There's a reason why we called it mother language, mother tongue,
yes,
you know. Um, and I personally don't feel that it's something that needs to be preserved. I feel like it's something that needs to be there forever because there's a value,
yes,
an
yes, yes,
unestimated value that
yes,
occurs within it, especially with language. I think that
yes,
understand that when you have been able to travel the world and you understand the
yes,
of what language is, because language
yes.
as communicating, we're
Mm-hmm,
really we're breaking bread.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Speak the
mm-hmm,
same language. We break
mm-hmm.
bread together.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
You know,
mhm, mhm.
it's
Yes,
beyond communication. You know,
yes, yes.
and it is the reason why it's called mother tongue or mother language is because it's a
Mhm,
birthright. Or I
mhm,
personally feel it's a
mhm,
birthright to be able to
mhm,
speak your mother's language.
mhm,
You
mhm,
know, and yeah, for me it was something that I was really trying to it was a huge debate in my head
mhm,
that if I were to have children, would they be just
mhm.
speaking English and French, Italian and Spanish?
Yes,
Would I be able
yeah.
to teach them isiXhosa, isiZulu,
Mhm,
isiTswana,
mhm, mhm,
isiSotho, which are
mhm,
the languages that
mhm.
that the dialects that I speak in South Africa?
Yes,
When they go
yes,
home, will they be able to break bread with their own?
yes,
You know, for
yes.
me, it was important.
Mhm.
That's very important.
And you're right about like about language, because I think like for me, like I also think of like language is not so much about even just speaking, but like how like when you speak a certain language, you see the world through like the way certain things are defined, or say like certain things are said, it completely changes your perspective of how you see the world. And like for me, like I also struggle with this so much because like I don't speak like my I'll say like my mother tongue as well as like I should. And like I think that like so much of the essence of like understanding like the breadth of like the culture and the breadth of how like say things are said has been lost to me as well. And I like there's a part of me that like feels like, okay, there's like a part of my culture that I will never fully understand, because I would the language has been watered down so much like over time. And like how like when that language is watered down, so much of how like the essential of like how things are seen and like the perspective you have of the world is also lost as well.
For sure.
So yeah.
For sure. And for me, that was the biggest fear, because
Mm,
in losing that, then the self is also lost. Because
mm, mm,
understanding that when I speak French today,
mm,
my understanding of French is not just of speaking it. I am
mm,
breathing it. I might not be perfectly articulating it. I might not be
mm,
perfectly be able to write it, but
mm.
I understand the history of it
Yeah, yeah.
at a certain point. So when I speak to a French person, it's not just to communicate with them. I understand their history. So I
Mm.
enter into their shoes,
Yes, yes,
in some
yes.
sort, not 100%, obviously, because I'm not
Mm,
fully. So those were the questions that I asked myself, that should I have children and I was not capable of transmitting that,
Mm.
How would they be able to even have empathy?
Mm.
No, it
No,
really,
it's true.
Amish
Yes,
really went
yes,
even to those thoughts, you know?
yes,
How would
yes.
they even have empathy to understand their own? Would they be able
Mm-mm,
to enter in their shoes and be able to
mm-mm,
understand who they were? Because I don't have
mm-mm,
answers as well, Lamich.
mm-mm.
I don't.
We're all like, because like there is also like say like for example, when you are taught a language rather than you just live in the environment of that language, I feel like it's very different of
Exactly.
how you actually like take in the language, because like if you're taught it just as like something that is spoken, like these are the words that you say rather than actually like, because like I was saying, like it's so much more than just the words. It's also about like expressing and how it is expressed, and for example, like back home, like not just like learning the greeting, but how you greet someone. So like all that is like part of the language that is something that like you can't really like it's like that generation of people who really under like speaking the full breadth of the language is not going to be there. So like you and all those little things, are the parts of the language that that it's very hard to teach. You have to act like I was saying, actively live it out. Yeah. So it's like how do you even preserve certain things like that?
True, 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 true.
Yeah.
You study the natural world. You study its cycles and its laws. I want to hear from you if you see any parallels between the nature's evolution and the evolution of human cultures.
I think I'm like obsessed with like looking at like the cycles of things and seeing how they mimic each other, like in like what we call like natural cycles, even though like for me I really think that like humans and nature like all like it's one thing. But for example, like even when it looks at like seasons and how there is like a like I think in nature time is not like a linear thing, but it's like a cycle of everything like turns in on itself. Like when something is born, it dies, and then like through that death, like something else is born, and it's a constant um moving thing. It's never like you never have like it being like this is one moment. It's like something is always in transition back to itself. And I think that's in a way how I'm like hopeful about like culture and that it will always come back to itself. Like we'll always find like lose it and then it will come back and then we'll lose it again. And each time we learn what wasn't right about because it's also not perfect, it's not like what we say are moving away from was like this perfect thing that was, everything was beautiful. Like there are also lessons that we have to learn. And it is in the same cycle of like you leave something and then you realize what is actually essential and what are the things that actually need to be let go of, and then you come back to that. And even in that coming back to that, what you do establish is also not perfect. There are also things that you have to leave again. So I think it's and I think even on a personal level, because I think it's also very much about like as a person, you grow and then you like you're in constant change. You're never like, okay, I am like this person, I am this, and like like you always there's always like parts of you that are dying and parts of you that are being born, and allowing those cycles to go full circle and with as much ease as possible, even though like I think a lot of the times there's a lot of like fighting. And it's also the same like those that same thing is also shown like in cultures. There's like so much fighting as we like let go of a culture. There's like the old, fighting what is coming, and we are making it separate of like this is like the old culture, this is like a new culture, this is the present, and there's like that whole tension in that moment. But I think there is like a certain like ease that like I need to learn, we all need to learn, of like letting things like run their course and knowing that it will always come back to that to it will always run into a circle. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's from nature, like yeah, like seeing those cycles and also seeing like time as like what is now is really just like a build up of what was before, but also in that same sense, the future is also held in that because like what we have now is basically what is just going to be built up on to create what will come after. Yeah.
I agree with you 100% on that. Well put. It's well said. Really well said. Thank you for that. You describe self as an abstraction,
Mhm.
constant influence. How has your sense of being changed, from that girl who moved from Uganda to then the UK and now in France? And does your sense also change from one piece into another as you're creating?
Well, like when I'm like doing like painting one like how my sense of self changes from
Exactly.
for me like the individual like when I think of like say it's like the most abstract concept like when I think of like a singular person like I think it's such an abstract idea. When I started painting portraits I would always struggle with like the idea of like capturing like a person like in like like those sit down portraits, then it's painted and it's like this is the moment of that individual. And I would always think that like how do you like capture a singular individual or like a singular moment? Because like there's so many facets of that person. So I think like for me, like on a personal level, like the more I think I go down that rabbit hole of of seeing like all those like different facets, also like seeing in myself like the different parts of like the whole and not seeing it as like one part is what represents the whole, but like every part kind of like comes together and has its own function. So yeah, I think on a personal level, I think it's like in making art and like having this as like a theme, it's been very much about also my own discovery of like the different like fragments of self and even how those are always changing, like no one is like the same individual from one moment to a next. Like, even just by like definition of like breathing, you're like taking in like new I don't know, like pieces of the world like that were not within you. So like it's very hard to like have like that defined structure of like this is a singular thing. When I like one of like the first like questions that I had when I started making art again was kind of like exploring the question of like where does like a singular person end and where does like another begin, and like the idea that like there is no actual like
At the beginning.
like defined like this is where like one person this is one person, this is another person. Like in all our interactions we are kind of like fused into like this one like melting pot or soup.
I want to ask you, if you were to whisper to your younger self, perhaps, the girl in Uganda painting in your father's shop,
Yes.
what would you tell her about art and about life?
Uh, Honestly, I think I actually wouldn't tell her anything. I would, I think that
For yourself.
yeah, no, it's true because I think that so much of creation is in the not knowing. Like you must be in a place of not knowing or not understanding to want to know, like if I think if I knew like where everything was going to go, and even now I don't know where everything is going to go, and I don't think I would want like God willing, my 60 or like 90-year-old self to tell me like, oh, everything is going to be fine. Like I think a lot of like the creation is like, will everything be fine? And that's like unsureness and that's like not knowing how if it will turn out good or if it won't, that actually makes you do the things that you do. And I think that like long term, like from a bigger picture, like you never know like what mistakes lead to something that is, that lead to something good, or what things that you thought were good are actually not. And I think that it is in all that mess of like some things, like that you actually make whatever you are supposed to make. So I think I would let her go through all the drama and and yeah, and discover it for herself. Because I also don't know as well, like what those like things that I would say that I wish I hadn't done that, where that's going to lead. Because and even if it didn't lead somewhere good in my lifetime, I don't know what that led to in the bigger scale of things or how it impacted someone else that I don't know. So I think yeah, I would let her be. I would I'd say do you.
Um, what do you hope that a person would work with after they have stood in front of your paintings?
I think I would want them to maybe question like the whole of themselves and all the different parts that are being played into creating that whole in themselves, in culture, in life in general, and kind of look deeper into how everything is connected to and the other thing and how like they can impact that just by way of being. But I also think that like I think like for example, when I like view an art piece, I think that there is also a lot about like my own interpretation of that art piece that I think is something that is important to have. And even though like say a lot of times like I explain out my pieces like in like a poem, I think that like the viewer plays such a role in being able to like reinterpret that like however they want to. And I think it would be more of like just to ask whatever questions. So I think questions are the most important thing, but like I hope that the pieces give people like a chance to ask questions. Like when I like make pieces, I think I make them a bit um I don't know, like not very literal in terms of like what they mean. Because I want there to be a chance for someone to question like what like how like why are these things placed in this way and yeah.
I love that a lot. And finally, if you were to dream out loud just for a moment, which we all,
Okay.
what is your hope for future Black artistry to be like across the world?
Mm. Um, I think that we as people like and when I say art, I think in all like creative fields in like terms of like creation of like we have like in most like countries on the continent, we are kind of like emerging, but we have like a blueprint of like how a lot of like the emergence turned out, and we can kind of see like where things went wrong, like and like systems that don't work, and we are still building those systems. So I think that we have like a chance to build them better. I don't say better, but like take like learn like the lessons of like some systems that failed and figure out like okay, like we are still emerging. So like how can we actually build systems that function in a way that actually supports like the whole. So I hope that we as like African artists, as Black artists, and this is art in general, like in anyone who's creating, we don't just follow the blueprint of like, this is the way things are done, this is how art is supposed to be made, or this is how, but like we look at what has been made and then we like kind of dissect what didn't work and what did work, and then we take that to ourselves as we are building these new cultures and new systems, and we like interpret that in a way that works for our own culture, and also that we also like learn the lessons that are being taught right now. Yeah.
Lamish, when you create a piece, but in your mind, you said earlier on you want the viewer to have questions upon it, to linger and to be able to discover something about themselves from it. So when you create, you also accompany your works with poems. I would like you to recite for us one of your poems, which is called The Harvest, please.
With pleasure. So this is The Harvest. Didn't this land kiss our feet when we walked on it? Didn't its fruit give up sweetness when we bit into it? When we lay our bodies over the flowers, did they for a moment resist death? Didn't they give up their last perfumed breath willingly? Didn't the trees bend and break to make way for our towers? The mountains slice themselves in half to open new paths. Air that I breathe, once breath in your lungs. This is the harvest. This is the harvest, once seeds, flesh picked clean by this land's own mouth. What a foolish lover we have made of this land. Thank you.
It's been an honor to have you with us.
Uh, Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice to talk to you and even just to I think work through a lot of like things that I'm thinking about. But it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.